Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Podcast Corner, the place where you can improve your English through natural conversations and interesting topics.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Emma. We're very happy to have you with us today.
In this episode, we'll have a natural English conversation that you can use for listening and shadowing practice.
Listen carefully and try to repeat after us. Pay attention to pronunciation, rhythm, word stress, and intonation.
Don't worry if you cannot understand every word. Relax, follow the conversation, and enjoy the learning process.
So today we are diving into a really fascinating topic. We are looking at why we freeze when we try to speak a new language and how to actually build real confidence.
Right, because you know that stomach-dropping feeling.
Oh, absolutely. It's the worst.
You are standing there, maybe in a crowded coffee shop in a foreign city.
Yeah.
Or, maybe you're just dialing into a video call with international colleagues.
And you have prepared for this. I mean, you have spent years, literally years, studying the grammar rules.
Yeah, you're memorizing endless vocabulary list, passing all those written exams.
Exactly. On paper, in the quiet safety of your own living room, you are basically a master of this language.
But then, the moment actually arrives. The person across from you asks a simple, everyday question.
And immediately, this physical reaction just takes over. Your heart rate spikes.
Your sympathetic nervous system kicks into overdrive.
Yep.
Your palms start sweating.
And that massive, beautifully organized library of words you've built in your head, it just completely vanishes.
Poof. Gone. You open your mouth and you absolutely freeze.
It is so frustrating. I mean, it's a visceral, deeply physical panic.
It really is. And what makes it so incredibly frustrating for people is the sheer contrast. You have the knowledge.
Right. You can read a complex article in this second language perfectly fine.
Exactly. But the gap between knowing a language in a textbook and actually producing it out loud in real time it's massive.
Especially under the gaze of another human being.
Yeah. When you are out in the wild, that academic competence just evaporates. You are left feeling entirely helpless.
Helpless and, honestly, a bit betrayed by your own brain. You know the words are in there somewhere.
You just cannot access them when the pressure's on.
So today we are looking at some incredible cognitive research and practical guides that completely reframe this experience.
It's a total paradigm shift. The main idea we are exploring today is quite counterintuitive, but it's incredibly liberating.
Right. The idea that fluency isn't an academic problem at all, it's a psychological one.
Yes. Studying more grammar is actually, in many cases, making that panic worse.
Which is wild to think about. So the material we are analyzing today argues that our entire approach to language learning has fundamentally misdiagnosed the problem.
We treat speaking as a test of our grammatical accuracy, like we're being graded on our vocabulary size.
But when you are standing in that coffee shop, your failure to speak isn't because you don't know the past participle of a verb.
No, not at all. Your failure to speak is a system crash. It's caused by cognitive and psychological overload.
So we have to learn how to hotwire the brain to bypass the panic entirely. That's the mission of this deep dive.
I love that. A survival toolkit for English learners. We are going to deconstruct the hidden psychological barriers that are secretly sabotaging your fluency.
And we are going to explore the mechanics of how to build new habits through specific exercises, like shadowing and micro-routines.
Which are so practical.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we're going to look at how to overcome performance anxiety in any high-stakes setting.
So let's start at the beginning. The starting point for all of this is redefining what we are actually aiming for.
Right. Because if the goal is no longer perfect grammar, what is it?
Exactly. The source material makes a compelling case that fluency is actually about psychological resilience.
That's a great point. It is the ability to manage your own internal panic.
Yeah, to just keep moving the interaction forward even when the language you are producing is messy, broken, and imperfect.
That word messy is the perfect entry point, actually.
Why is that?
Because it directly challenges the biggest obstacle mentioned in the research, the perfectionism trap.
Oh, the perfectionism trap. We are just paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes, aren't we?
Completely. We are terrified of using the wrong verb tense, and we are equally terrified of the social judgment.
Right. The idea that the native speaker across from us is secretly judging our terrible pronunciation.
To understand why that specific fear of judgment is so destructive, we have to look at how the brain works. Specifically, working memory.
Okay. Could you explain working memory for us?
Sure. Working memory is essentially your brain's RAM. It is the mental workspace where you hold and manipulate information in real time.
Like the short-term memory on a computer.
Exactly like a computer. And just like a computer's RAM, your working memory has a very strict, unforgiving limit.
Okay, let's visualize this. Let's say your brain is a web browser. When you try to speak a second language perfectly, how many tabs are you forcing open all at once?
Oh, you are opening an impossible number of tabs. Tab 1 is vocabulary retrieval.
Yeah.
You're searching the archives for the right noun.
Right, what's tab 2?
Tab 2 is grammatical conjugation. You're trying to apply complex rules to that noun.
Okay, so that's 2 tabs open.
Then tab 3 is phonology. That's physically figuring out how to move your tongue and lips to produce an unfamiliar sound.
Wow, okay. And tab 4?
Tab 4 is pragmatics. You are constantly evaluating if you are being polite enough for the social context.
That is a lot of processing power. And then there's the heaviest tab of all, isn't there? The social threat monitor.
Yes, tab 5 is your brain constantly asking, are they judging me? Do I sound stupid? Did they just narrow their eyes?
That social threat tab must consume massive amounts of energy.
It does. If
Yeah.
you are a perfectionist, your working memory maxes out instantly. The fan starts whirring, the mouse freezes, and the whole system crashes.
You stutter, you pause for an agonizing amount of time,
Yeah.
or you just go completely blank.
Exactly. The fear of making a mistake takes up so much bandwidth that there is literally zero processing power left to actually construct a sentence.
That makes so much sense. The research provides a beautifully simple example to illustrate this system crash. Let's go back to the coffee shop.
Let's do it.
So a perfectionist is standing at the counter, sweating profusely, trying to construct the absolute flawless sentence. I would like to order a coffee, please.
And their mental processor is just overwhelmed.
Right. But the alternative presented here is to walk up and simply say, I want order coffee.
Grammatically, I want order coffee is objectively incorrect.
Totally wrong.
The syntax is clunky. The polite phrasing is completely missing.
But we have to look at what happens immediately after those words leave your mouth. The barista nods, turns around to the espresso machine, and brings you a coffee.
The mission is accomplished. The transfer of information actually occurred.
Which is the ultimate and arguably the only metric of success in real-world communication. Did the idea in my head successfully transfer into your head?
Yes. In the early stages of learning, and specifically in live conversations, communication must be prioritized over perfection.
Okay, I have to jump in here, though. I hear this don't focus on mistakes advice all the time. And honestly, I have a real fear about it.
What do you?
Well, it sounds like a recipe for becoming that expat who has lived in Rome or Tokyo for 10 years, but sounds completely incomprehensible.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. If I just walk around saying, I want order coffee for the rest of my life, and I deliberately ignore my errors, won't my bad grammar just become permanent?
That's a very valid concern.
Yeah.
Fossilization is a real phenomenon in language learning.
Fossilization, what does that mean?
It's when errors become permanently ingrained in your brain as a habit. But the source material is not saying you should totally abandon accuracy forever.
Oh, okay. So what are they saying?
It is advocating for a strict separation of phases. It is really just a timing issue.
Could you explain the difference in timing?
Sure. When you are in the middle of a live interaction, your brain is already overloaded. In that exact moment, your only job is to get the message across, however clumsily you have to do it.
Okay. Because if you try to fix it right then...
You cannot correct yourself in real time without crashing the system. You just don't have the bandwidth.
That makes sense. So when do we actually fix the mistakes?
Later, when you are back in your quiet living room, completely removed from the social pressure, that is the review phase.
I get it. That is when you analyze the interaction, recognize that I want order coffee was clunky, and practice the correct structure for next time.
Exactly. Mistakes are tools for improving offline, not signals to stop communicating online.
I love that distinction. Mistakes are for improving offline. So we give ourselves permission to be messy out in the real world.
We have to.
But I think part of the reason we struggle to give ourselves that permission is because we have a completely unrealistic standard.
You mean the myth of the flawless native speaker?
Yes. The research dives into this, and I found it fascinating. We are holding ourselves to a standard that doesn't actually exist in reality.
It's so true. We project this illusion onto native speakers. We imagine that they deliver perfectly crafted, grammatically flawless paragraphs every time they open their mouths.
Like actors reciting a polished script.
Right. But linguistic analysis tells a completely different story.
Let's actually show this rather than just talk about it. If you were to secretly record a casual conversation between two native speakers,
Which happens all the time in linguistic study.
right, and if you transcribe it word for word onto a piece of paper, it reads like a disaster. A native speaker doesn't say, I intended to visit the grocery store, but it was unexpectedly closed.
No, a transcript of natural speech looks more like, yeah, so I was going to, like, go down to the,
Yeah.
what's it called, the place with the red awning. But anyway, totally closed.
It is entirely fragmented. Native speakers constantly forget words mid-sentence.
We use filler words like and, as crutches all the time.
Yeah, we start a sentence, realize it's going in the wrong direction, abandon it entirely, and just restart.
And we use incorrect, hyper-casual grammar constantly.
And yet we don't judge each other for it. We just process it as perfectly normal communication.
Because natural speech is improvisational. It's deeply messy, and it's full of errors.
So the benchmark you are terrified of failing to meet is basically a ghost. It doesn't exist.
Exactly. The native speakers whose judgment you are fearing are out there fumbling over their own words every single day.
That is a massive relief to hear, but
Right.
it brings up a very practical problem.
Oh, okay, let's hear it.
If we acknowledge that natural speech is messy, and we know we need to just start speaking to overcome the fear, how do we actually bridge that gap?
That's the big question.
Because intellectually, knowing that native speakers make mistakes doesn't make stepping out the front door any less terrifying.
Right.
We can't just jump into the deep end of the pool and start talking to strangers.
No, that approach usually backfires. If you force yourself into a high-stakes situation while you are still terrified, you risk reinforcing the trauma.
So what do we do instead?
That is why the source material advocates for fundamentally shrinking the battlefield. It introduces a methodology we can call the microdosage approach.
The microdosage approach. I like the sound of that. So I'm microdosing my language practice. What does that actually look like?
Well, the source is adamant about this. Do not start with massive, intimidating goals.
Right. Do not decide that your first step to building confidence is giving a 30-minute presentation in English to your company's board of directors.
Please don't do that, because the cognitive load of a 30-minute presentation is crushing. The fear will overwhelm you.
Your working memory will crash.
Yes, you'll fail, and your brain will encode a very dangerous neurological lesson. It will learn that speaking this language equals pain, humiliation, and threat.
And we want to avoid encoding that threat response at all costs. So the alternative is to start small, really small.
Start with 30 seconds. And critically, you start completely alone.
Alone, like by myself in my house.
Exactly. You practice by narrating your daily mundane activities to an empty room.
That's interesting. So removing the audience is the most crucial variable here.
It is. By practicing alone in your kitchen, you are constructing a fundamentally safe psychological environment.
Let's go back to our web browser analogy. When you are alone, tab 5, the social threat monitor, the fear of judgment is instantly closed.
Yes, that massive weight on your RAM is just lifted.
And your brain is suddenly flooded with available processing power.
Exactly. You can use all of that newly freed bandwidth to simply find the vocabulary and construct the sentence.
And by strictly limiting the time constraint to just 30 seconds, you are essentially rigging the game so that you cannot fail.
Anyone can string together thoughts for 30 seconds. The examples in the research are almost laughably simple.
Could you give us an example?
Sure. You just stand in your kitchen and say out loud to no one, I am making breakfast. First, I'm going to boil some water.
Or you look out the window and narrate, there is a cafe across the street. A woman is reading a book.
It feels overly simplistic, right? But the psychological payoff is massive.
How so?
When you successfully complete that 30-second narration, your brain registers a win. It releases a small spike of dopamine.
Oh, wow. So you feel a tiny incremental shift in your self-perception. You actually feel capable.
Yes, that foundational microdose of confidence is the biological prerequisite for trying to speak for 1 minute the next day.
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit, though. Let's look at this from another perspective.
Sure, go ahead.
I look at a sentence like, I am boiling water, and I think, how does this actually prepare me for complex business negotiation?
It's a fair question.
If I'm just stating the obvious to my toaster, am I really learning how to communicate?
To understand the mechanism here, we have to look at the difference between passive understanding and active recall.
Passive understanding versus active recall. Okay, explain that.
Most language learners suffer from a massive imbalance here. They have an enormous passive vocabulary.
Meaning they can read a business article and understand every word.
Exactly. But their active recall, The ability to summon those words instantly and coordinate their vocal cords to produce them is severely underdeveloped.
It's exactly like lifting weights. You don't walk into the gym on day one and try to bench press 300 pounds. You start with the lightest dumbbell.
That's a great analogy. The neurological bridge between the prefrontal cortex, where the knowledge is stored, and the motor cortex, which controls your mouth, hasn't been built yet.
Ah, so there's a physical connection that needs to happen.
Yes, when you narrate your life out loud, even with simple sentences like, "I am boiling water," you are actively forcing electrical signals to travel down that specific pathway.
And what happens when you do that repeatedly?
Through repetition, a process called myelination occurs. A fatty substance called myelin wraps around those neural pathways.
Like insulation on an electrical wire.
Precisely. It makes the signal travel much faster and more efficiently.
So you are physically lubricating the connection between knowing a word and physically saying it out loud.
Yes. So that later, when you are in that high-pressure boardroom, the physical and mental act of pushing an English sentence out of your mouth isn't a foreign, rusty process anymore.
It's a well-paved, myelinated highway.
Exactly. The content of the sentence matters less than the physical act of generating spontaneous speech.
Okay, that makes sense. So I'm alone in my kitchen, narrating my coffee making. I'm getting comfortable with the sound of my own voice, and my active recall is speeding up. But
Yeah.
there is a missing element here. I could stand there and say, I am boil, ing, wat, tear, like a robot.
Very true.
I'm generating speech, but I'm not developing the rhythm or the flow of a fluent speaker. Which brings us to the most technical and arguably the most powerful tool in this entire framework.
Yes. The technique known as shadowing.
Shadowing. This is highly specific. Let's break down the exact mechanics, because it's not just passive listening, is it?
Not at all. Shadowing is taking an audio source of a native speaker, like a podcast or an audiobook, and repeating what they say as closely as humanly possible.
You are attempting to mimic everything. The pronunciation, the stress on certain syllables, the rhythm, and the intonation.
It is the ultimate exercise in active listening, combined with immediate vocal reproduction.
And the source outlines a very rigid 3-step protocol for this. Can we go through the steps?
Absolutely. Step one is the comprehension phase. You listen to a short piece of audio, maybe 30 seconds long, just for meaning.
No speaking during step 1.
No speaking. You just need to understand the context of what's being said.
Got it. Then what?
Then step two is the pause and repeat phase. You listen again, but this time you pause the audio after every single sentence.
And you repeat the sentence out loud.
Exactly. You attempt to perfectly match the speaker's tone and rhythm while you repeat it.
Okay, step 1 is listen. Step 2 is pause and repeat. What's step 3?
Step three is where the real neurological adaptation happens. This is the simultaneous overlay phase.
Simultaneous overlay? That sounds intense.
It is. You play the audio,
Yeah.
you do not pause it, and you try to speak out loud at the exact same time as the recording.
You are literally talking over them, matching their exact pace.
Yes, which is incredibly difficult.
I bet. Because your brain is caught in a dual processing loop. It has to process the incoming auditory signal while simultaneously generating the outgoing motor commands to your mouth.
It's a serious mental workout.
I have to admit, when I first encountered this technique, my immediate reaction was highly skeptical.
Why is that?
Well, isn't this just mindlessly parroting someone else? I'm basically acting like a mockingbird.
Right. I hear that a lot.
I'm not generating my own original ideas. How does repeating someone else's script help me formulate my own spontaneous thoughts in a real conversation?
It is the most common criticism of shadowing, but it stems from a misunderstanding of how the brain actually stores language for spontaneous use.
Really?
How so? Shadowing is not about memorizing a specific podcast script so you can recite it later like a play.
Okay, what is it doing then?
Shadowing is about a neurological shortcut called chunking.
Chunking. Could you explain chunking in the context of cognitive load?
Sure. When a beginner tries to speak a language, they build sentences word by agonizing word. In my opinion, we should.
Every single word requires a micro-decision in the prefrontal cortex.
Exactly. They're searching the database for each individual brick, pulling it out and trying to stack it.
Which takes forever. It sounds incredibly choppy, and it maxes out the working memory we talked about earlier.
Precisely. Shadowing bypasses the prefrontal cortex entirely. It teaches your brain to absorb language in chunks as complete, indivisible units of meaning.
Oh, I see. So when you shadow a native speaker saying, in my opinion, repeatedly, you stop treating it as 3 separate words.
Yes. It becomes a single motor reflex. It becomes one mental block.
So instead of having to go into the warehouse of my brain, find in, then go find opinion, I just reach out and grab the entire prepackaged box labeled in my opinion and drop it into the conversation.
You've got it. And consider the sheer amount of cognitive bandwidth that frees up for you.
It must be huge.
It is. If the first 4 words of your sentence are an automatic prefabricated chunk, like I completely agree with you, you do not have to spend a single ounce of working memory thinking about the grammar or vocabulary for those 4 words.
Wow. You can spend those crucial 3 seconds thinking about the actual original point you want to make next.
Exactly. You are installing conversational scaffolding in your brain. You're buying yourself mental breathing room.
That is brilliant. But the source emphasizes that shadowing does something else that traditional textbooks completely fail to do.
Yes. It teaches you the music of the language.
The music. What is the technical term for that?
The technical term is prosody. It's the rhythm, the stress patterns, the rise and fall of pitch, and critically, how words connect to each other.
Let's show how this works. The text points out that native speakers rarely pronounce words as distinct, isolated units.
No, we blur them together all the time.
Right. If you read the phrase, "What do you think?" on a piece of paper, it is 4 separate words.
But a native speaker doesn't articulate it that way in real life.
In natural speech, it morphs into something closer to one continuous sound, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds like, what do you think?
Right. What do you think? And if you have only ever learned English by reading textbooks, your auditory processing is expecting to hear 4 distinct words.
So when the native speaker rapidly fires what do you think at you, your brain simply won't recognize it. It sounds like gibberish.
Shadowing fixes that. It forces your physical articulators, your mouth, your tongue, to practice that blurring, that dropping of syllables.
It aligns your physical production and your auditory expectations with the reality of spoken language, not the sterile theory of written language.
That makes total sense. So shadowing provides these pre-built chunks, it teaches the music, and it speeds up production.
It's incredibly effective.
But let's say I'm shadowing daily. I have my chunks. Yet, when I enter a live conversation, I notice I am still pausing for 3 or 4 seconds before I speak. Why does that happen? Because my brain is doing something incredibly exhausting behind the scenes, right?
Yes. This brings us to a deeply ingrained mental habit that the research identifies as the ultimate killer of momentum.
What is it?
You're dealing with the translation lag.
The translation lag. You mean the internal translation dictionary?
Exactly. The research is absolutely adamant about this. Translating every single idea from your native language into the second language makes speaking agonizingly slow.
It creates a massive bottleneck.
To truly appreciate the exhaustion this causes, we need to trace the mental commute of a learner who is relying on translation.
Let's look at a live interaction. Walk us through it.
Okay, the other person said something to you in English. Step 1. Your brain receives the English auditory signal.
Okay, step 1.
Step 2. You translate that English into your native language just to comprehend the meaning.
Wow, so that's 2 distinct cognitive steps just to understand what was said to me.
Then step 3. You formulate your response conceptually in your native language.
Right.
Step 4. You translate that native language response back into English, checking the grammar rules along the way.
And finally,
Step 5. You actually speak the English words out loud.
it's a 5-step, deeply intensive mental commute for every single sentence.
Think about how that scales in a 30-minute meeting. It's no wonder people feel physically exhausted after speaking a second language.
They aren't just communicating, their brain is running a marathon of double processing.
And consider what is happening in the physical space between you and the other person while you are executing steps 2, 3, and 4.
Silence. Awkward, panicky silence.
Exactly. And that silence acts as a pressure cooker. The longer the silence stretches, the more your social threat monitor flares up.
Which reduces your working memory, making the translation take even longer. It is a vicious, compounding cycle.
It is exactly like using a middleman in a high-stakes negotiation.
Oh, I love this analogy. Like using a middleman. Imagine you are trying to negotiate the purchase of a house, but you aren't allowed to speak directly to the seller.
Right. You have to whisper your offer to a guy.
Who walks into the next room, whispers it to the seller, listens to the counteroffer, walks back into your room, and whispers it to you.
The conversation takes 10 times longer, and the nuance is entirely stripped away.
Your native language is that middleman. As long as you are translating, you will always be one step behind the actual rhythm of the conversation.
You have to fire the middleman.
Fire the middleman, but how? Firing the middleman requires rewiring how your brain links concepts to vocabulary.
The research provides specific exercises for learning to think directly in the target language.
Right, because you can't just snap your fingers and say, okay, brain, I'm now going to think exclusively in English about the macroeconomic implications of global trade.
No, it doesn't work that way. The complexity is too high for that.
So what does the source suggest?
The source says you have to start with incredibly basic, almost childlike thoughts. You have to narrate basic states of being internally.
Internal monologues, like what?
Like, I'm tired, it's hot today, I am hungry.
Or asking yourself simple questions and answering them in your head.
Exactly. What should I eat for lunch? I think I'll have a sandwich.
What do I need to do next? I need to send that email. Honestly, it feels infantile.
It does feel infantile, but the simplicity is the entire point here. You are trying to forge a direct, myelinated connection between an abstract biological concept like the feeling of hunger and the English word for it.
Completely bypassing the native language circuitry.
Yes. When your blood sugar drops, you want the thought, I'm hungry, to fire instantly in English without your brain first routing through your native language.
By constantly running these low-stakes, highly repetitive internal monologues, you are paving a direct neural highway.
Over time, as that highway widens, more complex abstract thoughts can travel down it without needing the translator.
That is so practical. Okay, so we are narrating our kitchen activities, we are shadowing podcasts to build our chunks, we are actively firing the mental middleman, and we are finally starting to feel a little bit of momentum.
The system is working.
But then we make a fatal modern error. We open our phones.
Oh, social media.
Yes, we scroll through social media and we see some 22-year-old polyglot flawlessly switching between 6 different languages while making a matcha latte.
And instantly, all of that fragile confidence we just built shatters into a million pieces.
The toxic nature of comparison is a profound psychological roadblock. The material highlights this as a primary reason learners abandon the process entirely.
Comparing your internal reality to the external performance of fluent speakers is a fast track to destroying your resilience.
The rule prescribed here is rigid. You must only compare yourself to your past self.
Which is a beautiful sentiment, but how do we practically execute that?
It's incredibly difficult to gauge your own progress.
It is. The reason it is so destructive to compare yourself to the polyglot on social media or even the fluent colleague in your office is due to what we can call the iceberg illusion.
The iceberg illusion. I've never thought about it that way. What is that?
When you watch someone speak fluently, you are only seeing the tip of the iceberg appearing above the water. You are witnessing the final, polished, highly curated result.
You are just watching the performance.
What is hidden underwater is the massive, invisible structure of failure that supports that performance.
You do not see the 5 to 10 years of grinding daily study.
You do not see the thousands of humiliating mistakes they made in public.
You do not see the moments they cried in frustration over a verb conjugation.
Exactly. You are comparing your messy, frustrating step 1 to someone else's highly edited step 100. It's a rigged game.
It creates this toxic belief that fluency is an innate genetic talent that they possess and you simply lack, rather than the inevitable result of a long, invisible process of accumulating errors.
But tracking your own progress presents a unique cognitive challenge.
This is exactly where I struggle with the compare yourself to your past self advice. Progress in language acquisition is largely invisible day to day, isn't it?
It really is.
If I decide I want to lose weight, I can step on a scale every morning and look at an objective number. But I can't feel my brain forming new synapses.
Right. I can't quantify my working memory capacity expanding.
Subjective feeling is a terrible, unreliable metric for language progress.
It is. On a day you are tired, you will feel like you have regressed entirely. You need objective data.
And the source solves this with a highly tangible, undeniably effective exercise: the power of self-recording.
The strategy is brilliant in its simplicity. You take your phone, you open the voice memo app, and you record yourself speaking unscripted on a simple topic for exactly 1 minute today.
Just 1 minute.
Just 1 minute. The crucial step is what you do next.
Yeah.
You save the file, and you do not listen to it. You lock it away.
Okay, so I don't listen to it today.
Right. You spend the next 30 days practicing your shadowing, your micro-narrations, your internal monologues. Then 1 month later, you open the app and record yourself speaking on that exact same topic for another minute.
And then finally you listen to them back to back.
The contrast is almost always staggering. Mhm. Because the neurological changes happening in your brain are microscopic day to day, your conscious mind does not register the improvement.
But when you compress 30 days of adaptation into a side-by-side audio comparison, the tangible evidence of growth is undeniable.
You can literally hear the neuroplasticity.
You hear that your pauses are shorter, you hear the rhythm starting to develop.
You catch yourself using a vocabulary word effortlessly that you audibly stumbled over a month prior.
It acts as audio receipts for your hard work. It provides objective proof that the effort is translating into biological changes in how you process speech.
And that fosters a very different, much deeper kind of confidence.
Right, it shifts you away from the fragile confidence of, I hope I don't mess up today, to the robust, data-backed confidence of, I have documented proof that my brain is capable of adapting and improving.
It anchors your motivation in an achievable internal metric rather than an impossible external standard.
Okay, so let's walk through the timeline. You've tracked your progress, you have your audio receipts.
You've been shadowing your chunks.
You step into a real conversation with a real human being, you are feeling ready, you start talking, and then, mid-sentence, disaster strikes.
Oh, no.
Your mind goes completely, utterly blank. You need a specific word, let's say. You need the word thermos, and it is just gone. The file is corrupted.
It happens to everyone.
What do you do in that exact moment? Do you stare at them? Do you fake a coughing fit?
This is where the material transitions from long-term training to immediate tactical survival skills. It addresses the absolute inevitability of forgetting words.
Because, as we demonstrated earlier, native speakers forget words all the time.
We do. The foundational rule when the word vanishes is do not freeze. You must keep the conversational momentum alive by deploying the art of circumlocution.
Circumlocution, that is a highly academic word. What does it actually mean?
It translates literally to talking around something.
Yeah.
When the specific vocabulary item fails to load in your working memory, you do not abort the sentence.
You just keep going.
Yes. You simply use other, simpler words to describe the attributes, function, or geometry of the missing word.
Let's actually demonstrate this live. Let's play a quick game of circumlocution.
Sounds fun.
I'll be the learner whose mind just went blank, and you'll be the native speaker I'm talking to. Let's say I'm in a hardware store. I need a specific item, but the word has completely evaporated. Ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Excuse me. I'm looking for, it's a small metal piece. It has spiral threads cut into the outside of it. You use it to attach two pieces of wood together, and you turn it with a tool.
You are looking for a screw.
Exactly. A screw. I didn't need the vocabulary word. The transfer of information occurred purely through my description of its geometry and its function.
The listener's brain automatically solves the riddle for you.
Which requires us to fundamentally redefine what it means to be fluent, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Based on this methodology, fluency does not mean possessing a perfect, encyclopedic vocabulary that never fails.
Fluency is a strategic competence. It is the ability to navigate the inevitable roadblocks and keep the interaction moving forward when your vocabulary does fail.
Fluency is the navigation of the roadblock, not the absence of the roadblock. I love that.
And here is where the strategy gets incredibly nuanced. The source doesn't just recommend describing the word, it recommends using specific stalling tactics or filler phrases to buy your brain time while it searches for the description.
Yes, pre-built chunks designed specifically for stalling. Phrases like, let me think for a moment, or how can I explain this best?
For I'm not sure of the exact word, but...
What I find so ironic about this is the psychological trick it plays.
What trick?
When you use a phrase like, how can I explain this?
Mm.
Internally, you might feel like you are failing because you forgot the word.
But to the listener across from you, deploying a complex, natural-sounding filler phrase actually makes you sound more like a thoughtful, engaged native speaker than if you just instantly spat out a robotic, perfectly rehearsed sentence.
It is a highly effective linguistic smokescreen. It serves a vital dual purpose.
What's the first purpose?
Socially, it signals to the listener, I am still actively engaged in this conversation. I have not crashed. Please hold the floor for me. It prevents that dead, awkward silence.
And cognitively.
Cognitively, reciting that pre-built chunk buys your working memory a crucial 2 or 3 seconds to reboot, search the archives, and formulate the circumlocution.
It masks the internal panic with external competence.
The material also points out something really profound about our relationship with silence.
When speaking a second language, we are terrified of silence, aren't we?
We are. If there's a 3-second pause, we assume the conversation has died and the other person thinks we are unintelligent.
But observe native speakers. We pause constantly, we look away, we stall, we think.
Pausing is universally recognized as a sign of cognitive processing, not necessarily a sign of incompetence.
Owning the silence, sitting in it comfortably rather than panicking, is a massive indicator of true underlying confidence.
Okay, so knowing all of these tactical tricks, shadowing chunks, circumlocution, stalling phrases, is fantastic in theory.
Right, if I read this research once, I understand the concepts perfectly.
But understanding a concept intellectually does not mean my brain can deploy it under pressure when my heart rate is at 120 beats per minute.
These strategies require actual physical integration into the nervous system.
Theory without application is entirely useless in language acquisition. The source material recognizes this gap and prescribes a highly systematized daily habit to operationalize everything we have discussed.
And the overarching philosophy of this habit is consistency vastly trumps intensity.
The research explicitly states that a small amount of practice every single day is infinitely superior to one massive, exhausting 3-hour study session on a Sunday afternoon.
In fact, the recommended routine is almost unbelievably short, a highly structured 10-minute daily habit.
We have to ask why 10 minutes a day outperforms a 3-hour binge. The answer lies in the biological realities of neuroplasticity and memory retention.
Specifically, we have to look at the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. Could you explain the forgetting curve? This explains why cramming doesn't work, right?
Right. Hermann Ebbinghaus discovered that memory loss is incredibly rapid immediately after learning something new. If you study for 3 hours on Sunday, by Tuesday, your brain has already pruned and discarded a massive percentage of that information because it hasn't been forced to recall it.
Neuroplasticity, the physical forming of new synaptic connections, does not respond well to binging. It relies on frequency.
So every time you practice, you are sending a biological signal to your brain that says, these English pathways are important for my survival. Do not prune them, strengthen them.
Precisely. If you wait a week between sessions, the pathways degrade.
A 10-minute daily session interrupts the forgetting curve. It forces the brain to maintain and myelinate those pathways.
Daily repetition, even if brief, tells the nervous system, keep this active. Let's break down the architecture of this 10-minute routine because it is divided very deliberately.
It is a 3-3-4 split. 3 minutes of shadowing, 3 minutes of speaking, and 4 minutes of reviewing. That is the entire daily requirement.
It is brilliantly efficient. Phase 1, 3 minutes of shadowing a podcast or video. This is the input and mimicry phase.
You are warming up the physical articulators of your mouth, you're absorbing the prosody and rhythm, and you're activating those pre-built chunks in your motor cortex.
It's the dynamic warm-up before a workout. Then immediately into phase 2, 3 minutes of speaking.
The protocol suggests speaking out loud about the topic you just shadowed, but forcing yourself to use your own words.
This is where you transition from passive mimicry to active generation.
You are forcing the prefrontal cortex to take the vocabulary just absorbed and actively construct it into spontaneous thoughts.
And critically, because you are only doing it for 3 minutes, the cognitive load remains manageable. You stop before the mental exhaustion sets in.
And finally, phase 3, 4 minutes of reviewing. This involves listening back to a recording of your 3 minutes of speaking.
But here is where the material introduces a non-negotiable and frankly very difficult rule for the review phase.
You are only allowed to notice and fix one single thing.
Now, I have to stop and challenge this. This goes against everything we are taught in the traditional education system.
I hope so.
If I listen to my 3-minute recording and I hear myself make 10 glaring grammatical errors, I use the wrong tense, I mispronounce 5 words, I drop the plural spaces, shouldn't I try to fix all of those?
That's what most people think.
Right. If I only fix one, aren't I just ignoring the other 9 and letting them fossilize?
It feels deeply counterintuitive, especially for high achievers who are used to grading themselves out of 100%. But if you attempt to fix all 10 mistakes at once, what happens tomorrow?
I guess I try to focus on all 10 things.
Exactly. And you fall right back into the perfectionism trap we analyzed in Section 1. You invite cognitive overload right back into the process.
You open up all the browser tabs again?
Yes. If you go into tomorrow's 3-minute speaking session trying to hold 10 different corrections in your working memory, don't forget the sound. Remember the past tense. Don't drop the eds. Your RAM will crash.
You will be paralyzed by all the things you're trying not to do. So the restriction is actually a psychological safety mechanism.
It is. By forcing yourself to choose only one single error, say, tomorrow, my only goal is to remember the past tense of irregular verbs, and I give myself permission to make every other mistake.
Yeah.
You give your brain a single achievable mission.
You guarantee sustainable progress without triggering the threat response.
And the math on this is undeniable. Fixing one thing a day for 30 days leads to massive compounded improvement that actually sticks.
While trying to fix 10 things a day leads to working memory overload, burnout, and quitting the habit entirely by day 3.
It's just the framework of the review phase, from grading a test to mining for a single gem of improvement. It is an exercise in self-compassion just as much as linguistic development.
Which really brings this entire exploration full circle. If we synthesize everything we have unpacked in this deep dive,
The realization that working memory limits us, the micro dosages of solo speaking, the neurological chunking of shadowing,
firing the internal middleman, deploying circumlocution as a smokescreen, and the relentless consistency of the 10-minute habit.
all of these mechanics point toward a profound paradigm shift.
They point to a complete reversal in how we understand the relationship between confidence and action.
The central thesis of the source material, the ultimate takeaway, is this: confidence does not magically appear before you start speaking.
You cannot wait on the sidelines studying textbooks and grammar rules, hoping that one day you will finally feel confident enough to enter the arena.
That feeling will never arrive on its own. Confidence is not a prerequisite for action.
Confidence is a byproduct of action. It develops specifically because you start speaking, however messily, and you survive the experience.
You realize the barista still brought you the coffee, even if your syntax was broken.
You realize the listener didn't laugh at you when you used a stalling tactic to find the word for screw.
You listen to your 1-month audio recording and realize you possess objective proof of your own adaptability.
Those small survivals, those micro wins, are the neurological bricks that build the house of confidence.
You act your way into a new way of feeling, rather than waiting to feel a certain way before you act.
Which is an incredibly powerful framework that extends far beyond just language acquisition. As we wrap up this deep dive, I think that is the ultimate resonance of this material.
This toolkit isn't just about speaking English or Spanish or Japanese.
It really isn't. If we pull all the way back and look at the psychological mechanics we've discussed, it leaves us with a fascinating, broader thought to mull over.
What if the ultimate goal of learning a new language isn't just to download a new dictionary of vocabulary into your brain so you can order coffee more efficiently?
What if the friction is the point?
Exactly. What if the grueling process of learning a language, the process of deliberately forcing yourself to be messy, to make humiliating mistakes in public, to sound far less intelligent than you actually are?
To navigate the sheer panic of a blank mind and still find a way to keep communicating.
What if that process is actually forging a slightly different, more resilient, and more forgiving version of your own identity?
That is profound. By systematizing your own failure and learning to survive it, you are building psychological armor.
When you systematically train yourself to allow imperfection in a second language, you build a profound, adaptable toughness.
And it is highly likely that by learning to survive the messiness of a new language, you might just return to your native language as a far more confident, empathetic, and effective communicator overall.
You realize that the goal was never flawless perfection. The goal was always simply human connection.
The goal is connection, not perfection. Embrace the messy reality of natural speech. Fire the middleman in your head.
Start your 30-second kitchen narrations tomorrow morning and forgive yourself for the mistakes you make along the way.
That brings us to the end of today's episode.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation and found it useful for your English listening and shadowing practice.
Remember, you can listen to this episode again, repeat each sentence, and try to copy our pronunciation, rhythm, stress, and intonation.
Even a few minutes of shadowing practice every day can help you speak more naturally and confidently.
Thank you so much for listening to English Podcast Corner.
Please like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and share it with other English learners.
Your support helps us create more English conversations, listening exercises, and shadowing practice for you.
Keep practicing, stay confident, and don't be afraid of making mistakes.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Take care, everyone.
Goodbye, and happy learning.